Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Hormonal Mama podcast with your host, me, Kara Drescher. Today on the show, I am interviewing Ilana Refaeli. Ilana is sharing with us today her personal experience with infertility and her very interesting, complicated, and ultimately successful fertility journey. Now, Ilana is a fascinating person. She is trilingual, fluent in English, Spanish, and Hebrew. And she has so much experience as a medical and legal interpreter, and she uses her experience to help others in underserved communities as an interpreter who are dealing with infertility and struggles like she did. She's sharing her story today, her struggles and her success, our new mom here, and she's telling me exactly what she is doing to help others. You will not want to miss this episode. It's an incredible story and what she is doing to pay it forward. We'll see you in just a minute. Welcome, Ilana, to the Hormonal Mama podcast. I am psyched to have you here. We have so many things to get to in our chat today. But before we do, I just want to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I'm so glad. So, okay, we have so much to get to. And I think a good place for us to start, because we're talking about infertility today. And as we both know, infertility is very close to my heart. Infertility is very close to your heart. So let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me a bit about why it's close to your heart. I know you've gone through infertility. You have had a journey, and I'd love to hear what you would like to share. I would love to hear your story.
Wow, there's so much.
I know.
Oh my God. So let's see. I started. Well, I got married late in life.
Mm-hmm.
I got married in my late 30s. But just to be on the safe side, I started my journey on my own before I even met my husband, just to get checked and find out, if everything is good. While I'm being super stubborn, like, I want kids. If you don't want kids, I'm not going to be with you.
Get out of my face. I like it.
So
Good
I was
attitude to have.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me make sure everything's working the way it should. And I started going through Penn Fertility,
which I know well. I was a patient.
Yes. Yes. And that is where I started with everything. And coincidentally, I met my husband along that journey. So I filmed him into that, and he decided to join in on the journey. Once we were together, engaged to be married. And we went through that. There were some issues there that made me a little bit uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So I have quite a few friends that were going through fertility treatments. Most of them were going to a different clinic. Mm-hmm. So I got referred over to one specific doctor at this clinic. And I went over there. I started working with them. We did a couple treatments with them, unsuccessfully, unfortunately. And then the pandemic hit. No, sorry, the pandemic did not hit yet. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I know what it's like to be like, okay, my journey's all over the place and trying to catch up with it all. I get that.
And I don't keep dates. Like, I'm not the most. Yeah. Like, certain things are better off forgotten.
Yes.
So I decided to ask a different friend that had success over in New York with fertility treatments. And I went over to New York to Weill Cornell, who was wonderful. The doctor was close to my heart. He was a Colombian Jew, which I'm Venezuelan. So it was just kind of like, wow. And the head of the practice is Israeli. And as you may or may not know, the first and most notorious IVF research and clinics and everything was successful and done in Israel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a fun fact right there. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
So we decided to go to New York, and simultaneously we booked a trip to Israel as well. And I got to talking with a friend in Israel who referred me to one of the top IVF physicians in Israel. And it turned out that he doesn't really see patients. He's hesitant a little bit. He's got a full practice, understandably so. But I know I'm international myself.
Yeah.
You show the dollars, you get an appointment.
Right.
Or you have the right connections and you get an appointment.
Exactly.
So I called in, and it turns out it's one of my friend's cousin who takes his calls.
Wow.
And she
Isn't
was
that
like,
crazy?
what? So I, of course, got an appointment immediately.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's
we
crazy.
went to see him. We met up with him. We had the treatment in New York, which was unsuccessful as well. And in New York, they had said, it could be your eggs, but we're not sure. There's never enough information about the eggs of a woman, unfortunately, as much as there is about the sperm of men, which is baffling to me at this point. Like all this science, all this technology, it makes me wonder, like, really? Or are we just total suckers that we're like, okay, we can keep trying?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that is so frustrating.
Yeah, so we went to Israel, and the guy said, it could most likely be your eggs because of your age. But if you want to try here, you're more than welcome to try here. We're not huge on the egg donors here because of laws and certain things that they do not allow Jewish women to obtain egg donors from other Jewish women. I think part of it is halachic, and part of it is, they don't want to make sure that it's not family that's being done through IVF together. So we went to Israel, we came back, and I said, okay, well, let's wait a little bit and we'll go to Israel because we have to make the arrangements, and it's a lot, as you know. It takes at least 6 weeks of committing yourself to a location before you're safe to fly if it works.
Right.
So we were planning that. I was looking into Airbnbs, and we were so excited. We're like, wow, 6 weeks in Tel Aviv, this is going to be awesome.
Right, for sure.
And it's so cute. Like, what really got me, it's like the little things that when we were there in the clinic, he had this little onesie for the babies at work that said made in Israel. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh man, that is so cool.
I was like, oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
But the pandemic hit and we couldn't go to Israel. Well, I could. My husband could not. And even if I could, I would have gotten stuck there.
Right.
For quite a while because, as we know, flights were shut down.
Yeah.
So that was put on hold. I decided, well, let me come back here to the clinic here because, time is running out on me because of my age, etc. And I was going to begin a treatment here, and they decided to shut down IVF as it was not necessary. So IVF was shut down for 6 weeks or so. Luckily, I was not mid-cycle because it would have been canceled.
Right.
I would have lost all that money.
Oh, it's so devastating.
So yeah, I'm beyond lucky that that did not happen to us. And the reason it didn't happen is because they were really pushing me to do donor eggs, and I was quite hesitant still.
Yeah, well, and I understand.
Because I wasn't getting good answers, scientifically, or any good reason, like, well, we just can't tell you.
Right, exactly. I get that.
Yeah, so that was one. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I can edit it.
So we began there. We started, we said, well, let's try something different. We tried something different. So, they go through this whole process. It was taxing. We're in the middle of this pandemic. Part of me, I'm like, do I even want to bring a child into this world and about what's about to happen? And so anyways, we ended up going to a different doctor within the practice because I heard coincidentally, there's a Facebook group of the patients and someone mentioned another doctor in the practice. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I had an issue come up. So I made a call and he was the doctor on call to call me back. And I was like, wait, where are you from? What is your accent from? He goes, oh, I'm from Israel. And I was just like, really?
Very interesting.
And it just kind of like piqued something in me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to switch doctors within the practice. Yeah. It may or may not be nice, but it's the same practice. Yeah. It shouldn't matter.
Exactly.
So I went back on the forum on Facebook and I was like, anybody know who this physician is that says he's Israeli and he has an accent? And right away, everybody's like, oh, he's amazing. It's this and this person. And I was like, okay, great. So I book an appointment with him. We go. I love him. He's amazing. And I said, you know what? No matter what happens here, success or no success, at least I will leave this journey with a good feeling in my heart.
Yes. I'm writing that quote down right there because you're totally right. That's amazing.
So that was my most important thing, keeping it real in the sense that, it's a rough journey, but also being realistic that my age is an issue. And I started late. And I know they say, it's not necessarily age related, but it clearly does not help.
Right.
So we did a couple cycles with him. In the meantime, we had taken quite a while between cycles and we had gone to Mexico to visit family. We were in Mexico and my sister-in-law suggested that I go see one of the physicians she has worked with for a very long time, who is very well known throughout South America and Mexico especially. He's the president of the IVF and OBGYNs in Mexico and I believe Latin America. Mm-hmm. So I said, sure. I mean, everything's worth a try at this point.
Absolutely.
You're chasing a miracle, basically.
Write that down too. You got all these good quotes. Chasing a miracle.
So we met up with him and I liked him. He's a very serious, very different everything. At first, I will admit, we joke about it all the time that at first I'm sitting there in the car being driven by my sister-in-law to this clinic and I'm thinking, very typical American dream of mine, right? Oh my God, I'm in tears. I can't believe this is what I've come to, that I have to come to Mexico for a doctor. Like, really? Like, I live in the US. Mm-hmm. People come from all over the world. And I know this. I'm an interpreter for all international patients.
Right.
I'm like, what am I doing? We arrive at this clinic that happens to be part of the Mayo Clinic.
Really?
Yeah, in Mexico City. And it felt like you're arriving at a country club. And I was just like, what?
This isn't what I expected.
I was like, wow. Not even any of the New York, Pennsylvania, none of them. You get that feeling.
Not at all. No.
Instead, you get this feeling of like, all right, here I am in the trial baby factory. And I'm one of many that feel like I walk into a car dealer like, oh, you can afford this much?
Exactly. That's it. Oh my goodness. And
I have said that to them because I went through a clinical trial that, of course, didn't work out. And the person that was running the clinical trial here was so obnoxious that, you don't mess with women when they're super high on hormones.
No, you do not.
You really can't expect the best behavior in return. And I literally was like, how many kids do you have? She goes, none. I said, who hired you?
For you.
I go, really? This is the choice of job you've decided to work with people who are dying to have kids while you have none and could care less?
Yeah.
And are so cold about it? Like,
no.
I couldn't believe it. I did put in a complaint about her, which takes a lot for me to do.
Well, it's hard to do that. I've been there. I had a similar situation, and it is hard to do that. I know very, very much how hard it is, but it's the right thing. I feel very strongly about that.
Interestingly enough, so we go to Mexico and same thing. The pandemic hit. We couldn't return to Mexico either as our plan because it would have been nice. Mexico seemed like the doctor was the most confident, the most knowledgeable, the most giving, like, this is how it is. This is how it's going to be. We're not going to inject you with 1 million medications like in the US. That's ridiculous. We don't do that. And it's, my God, 1/3 of the price.
Which is
so
amazing.
Even with staying there. So we're like, okay, we'll consider that. And then same thing, pandemic hit. So when I switched to the doctor here, we had to call a conference call. And I find out that my chart has been flagged as a nasty patient.
Oh, come on.
And I was like, good. I'm proud of that.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was like, because nobody likes to hear the truth.
No.
Nobody likes to hear that they're nasty to us or that they price me according to my face or that I told them one day I'd rather buy a condo in Miami on the beach than waste my money on them.
Good for you for saying that. I think that's awesome. Because this journey is hell, and people who don't go through it don't know. And it's infuriating to hear of someone working in this industry, one that you and I have a lot of experience with, treating you this way. You have every right and should stand up for yourself and say, you know what, I don't care. This is not okay. And that's crazy to me that they flagged you. I would have had a field day with that. And I'm a very, very, very nice person. But
that was supposed to be a private conversation, but they didn't realize that I was on that conference call.
That's crazy.
So, alas, I stuck with this Israeli doctor who was amazing. Yeah. But what I've come to find out, and I didn't find this out until way later, even though I always suspected it. I always asked. Like, I always had my suspicion for some reason when I would go in for a transfer or retrieval or whichever. And I would be like, how do I know that you're actually using what I'm asking you to use? Let's, for example, how do I actually know? How do I actually know what you're using? I have no proof. Like, you show me a picture of a dot and tell me that's yours.
Right.
And there's zero proof, zero confidence there. So there was a time that this was the last treatment I ever tried there. And we get to the retrieval. And I promised that will be the last time I ever do a retrieval. I was done. I had been through 5 retrievals already. And I said, I'm old enough. I've done it all.
Yeah.
I've done different cycles, different medications. I've come to learn that thankfully I love injections.
Oh, you're lucky.
I mastered giving them to myself.
That's awesome.
To the point that I was like, anybody want me to inject them? Because I will come over and do it.
I love it. I love it. Because you become an expert. You're just like so good at it.
And it doesn't hurt. It's like, okay, like I kind of miss it. Like, I don't mind.
I get it. I do.
Giving myself one more.
Sure.
Yeah. So we get to this last retrieval and, you're on the table. They retrieve, they wake you up and they're like, right before they retrieve, they go, okay, this is what we're going to use, etc. I've signed here. And I'm like, well, there's one more sample. Like, no, there's not. We used it. I'm like, no. We ordered it. It's here. They're like, no, you're confused. We already used it. But we got to go. The time, we got to go. The OR is ready for you. And the whole time I said, I don't think you used any of it. Now you're between a rock and a hard place because the doctor has to trust the lab. He has nothing to do with the lab. He just receives whatever they send him at that time, and that's it. And I said to him right before I go to sleep, I said, this is BS. They messed it up. He goes, no, just calm down, be positive. So we go through with it. I mean, what could I do at that point? Of course, nothing worked out. And I left and I said, I don't think they used anything. I don't know if they even actually retrieved anything from me. How do you know? You don't know. You're asleep. You have no idea. And I wasn't a person that would have pain ever after. So I couldn't tell you like, oh yeah, I felt that. Nope. So sure enough, I said, I am finished. I am completely done. This was at the end of last summer, towards the end of last summer.
2020.
I was done. Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, okay, it's been 5 years. If God wanted me to have children, I would have done it by now with all these extra efforts. That's it. It's fine. Let's move on. Let's have our life. Let's enjoy what we have. And with that, I promised myself that all I wanted to do was take my teachings on to different populations. Because I work in this field, I work in the medical field, I'm an interpreter, I work mostly in the Hispanic population. And traveling to Mexico so much to see my husband's family and knowing so much about that different culture, that, you know, I said, these people, it is a huge taboo in this culture. And God forbid, it's never the women, it's never the men, it's always the woman. And I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to normalize it, to teach them, to, especially here in the United States, like you're out of your country, you're out of your base culture.
It's completely different.
And it's very different. And times have changed, things have changed, science has changed, our bodies have changed. Everything has changed. I've always wondered, like, is it the food we've grown up eating? Is it the chemicals that are in our food or in our bottles? Nobody knows. And even if they do, they're not going to tell us. It's a huge business. There's no interest in telling us. So I said I would like to provide the resources to these people. And really, I would love to share the fact that after everything I went through here, I ended up going to Mexico after all, and decided to go through another treatment. Because the doctor convinced me, because I was finished.
Well, after everything you've been through.
Yeah. And I have to say, after deciding and booking our trip and getting ready to go, I said, I'm not sure that I'm going to do anything, but I will listen. I'll listen to the doctor, because at that point I was like, great. I've started losing weight. I've started feeling better. I'm not tired anymore. Like, great. Who needs this?
Totally.
Let's move on here. I'm old.
I feel you there. I'm saying.
So I was like, let's move on. So, booked our trip. We're ready to go. We wait for the Jewish New Year to end. And we decide to go. We're leaving beginning of October. I said, even if I decide, it'll be good timing on my end to be there. That if I decide to go through a cycle, it'll be right on time. So
that makes sense.
We're ready to leave, and 2 days before, I get a letter from the clinic here, a bill for storage.
Oh my goodness.
Of things that were supposed to have been used and that I had always said.
Oh.
I didn't think were used.
Oh, Ilana.
Yeah.
I mean, I can picture the smoke coming out of your ears because
Yes.
I can only imagine the fury that I would feel. I mean, oh,
anything from that you were right to wow, nothing like getting money stolen in front of your face like that, and being told that you're crazy and you're obnoxious and you're a bad, difficult patient. And I'm like, well, perhaps I had my reason for being so difficult.
Yeah.
And lacking every bit of trust.
That is absolutely infuriating. And that's putting it really lightly.
So I have always taught my husband, and everybody always knows this about me, that I am huge on the Jewish New Year. And have always said, it's a new year, it's a new beginning. Leave the past in the past and just move forward. And my husband kindly reminded me of that and said, it's in the past, let's just move forward here. And I said, I'm never going to be that kind of person that sues or goes into medical malpractice lawsuits. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. I work with it on both sides of legal and medical. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, what's to
like? It's nothing I would ever go towards. Plus, my dream, which we will talk about later, I knew would involve this practice, hopefully, because I've always said, just because it didn't work for me does not mean it cannot work or help other people, because obviously it has.
Right.
So, I've always said it's a small world, especially in Philly. There's no reason to taint my name or anybody else.
Right.
Let's just move forward here. God will do his thing.
For you, that's really, really, really hard to do that.
That's what I did. And I moved on, and I went to Mexico, and I spoke with the doctor, and I went through with another treatment, which worked.
It did. Oh my goodness. I have chills right now. You don't even know. I have goosebumps. You probably can't see because the light is washing me out and I look like a ghost, but I mean, the hairs are standing up. That's so exciting.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like when I lost all hope.
The chills won't stop. I'm so excited right now. Oh, I have tears in my eyes, Ilana.
Yeah. When I lost all hope, I was like, I'm done. I don't care, whatever. And I made him promise, like, I'm not taking medications. I don't care. So he explained to us different things, and we did one shot here. My poor husband, I brought it the first time with me, and it didn't work. The needle exploded. I don't know what happened.
because everything is always crazy with this stuff.
I'm like, okay, I have injected myself thousands of times. This has never happened to me. My poor husband had to fly back to Mexico to buy the medicine again.
Oh my goodness.
Because there was no way to find it here.
Right.
And when I say that, thank God, I have a good relationship with my last doctor here. I do. He tried everything in his power to help me find it here in the US or in Israel, or somebody that could bring it to me.
Right.
But we couldn't. So my husband went to Mexico to buy the medicine and come back.
That's wonderful and crazy, but the craziest stories are sometimes the best stories. That's so exciting. Yeah. So how far along are you now?
I am 21 weeks.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I chills again. I'm not even kidding you. I have goosebumps all over my body right now. That's so exciting.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. You've been through so much. You deserve this so much. Wow.
And it's weird because I pushed like 3 other friends of mine that were like, oh, I don't know. One of them, she's going to mainline. And she also had success. So we're all 2 to 3 weeks apart from each other.
How awesome is that?
Thank God, because we're all old. So we're like, good, all the
you need the support. In our old age, you need that support. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
That's true. Oh, wow.
So I have to say the whole experience in Mexico, and not just because it was successful, just everything about it is so unbelievably nice. My dream is to have women like me that are like, I can't handle this. I don't want to deal with this drama, the money, the hardship, the blood draws every day, like insane.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen there. Does not happen there. An ultrasound. I used to say this all the time. Like, well, we all know well that during this journey, you're not able to have any sort of intimacy.
Right. I hear so many people refer to the ultrasound wand as their good friend Wanda. I hear that all the time. And it's just like this hilarious thing because it's true. Like you have to somehow find humor in it, or as you and I both
be the
know,
most miserable person.
Right. Like, because I mean, infertility like steals your life.
Yeah.
And that's
the thing. Like here, I feel like that's what it's come down to be. And I will say very proudly, because my dream is to take patients over to Mexico, that it's nothing like that there. I mean, it is so pleasant. And just the whole idea of how we are used to medicine here, you can never call a doctor. Ever. Yeah. Like, you leave a message, the nurse will call you back, whichever, in a couple days. Or the on-call doctor will call you back. There, it's like, oh, here's my WhatsApp. Just text me later. Let me know how you are.
Awesome.
And you're like,
okay.
I'm not doing that. And he's like, no, but I'm asking you to. And I'm like, that's weird.
No, thank you.
But it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly, when you go there, the staff is so nice. Yeah. They're like texting you, like, how did it go? How do you feel? And even like the biggest thing after the transfer, here, they're like, 15 minutes, go, you're fine. Go to the bathroom, do whatever, go drive home. On 76 through every effing bump that you could possibly fall into.
Have a nice treacherous ride home.
Yeah, you're fine. Don't worry, nothing can fall out. There, like, no. You're sitting here without moving for the next 3 hours. Wow. With your legs up and the little bucket under you. Yeah. You have to go to the bathroom. There it is. Wow.
That's such a different experience than here.
In every sense.
Oh my goodness.
Every sense. Amazing.
I mean, it's just, it just continues to make me so angry in general at the American healthcare system anyway.
So I've decided to, instead of be angry, take it into a positive direction. Because what does that help you? Other than create ulcers and blood pressure issues for you. It's not worth it. Because as you just said, the medical system sucks. So
it does. It
may as well not get there.
Agreed.
So to me, it's like, well, let me take this opportunity and do two things with it. I have my dream of educating and teaching women who don't know even where to start. Yeah. Or aren't sure, and I've been doing my part, when I meet younger women, they're like, oh, I have time. I'm like, no, you don't. Don't fall into this. Go get checked out. Yeah. Just be safe. Don't wait. Don't be stupid. Don't be like, oh, I have all the time. No, you don't.
Time goes by a whole lot faster than you think.
Yeah. There's a reason why our grandmothers were having kids at 19 years old. Yep. Exactly. Maybe we need to go back to that.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing. And in educating them, I would also like to take it to a certain population that lacks the knowledge or the resources to teach them and hopefully get a buzz going. Definitely. From the crowd and people that will be aware of what I'm doing, and business owners in the area, especially in South Philly, to perhaps collaborate and maybe work with Mainline Fertility to do a scholarship fund for one patient.
So incredible.
Yeah.
I think that's, it's such a, I can't think of the right word. Ambitious isn't the right word, even though it is ambitious. I don't say that in a negative way. Ambition, to me, is a powerful thing. I'm an extremely ambitious person, but it's incredible to me. I just want to say this to you, to take such a complicated journey that has had such a beautiful result. And I'm still I still have chills about it. I'm so excited.
It's nerve-wracking.
It's scary. I know that firsthand. It is absolutely nerve-wracking, and it's craziness, but it's such a wonderful experience, and it's something really special, I think, for those of us who have experienced infertility. When you get the success and you're kind of like, what? I mean, I can only speak for myself in that moment of, well, this can't be real. I mean, gosh, my kids are almost 3, which I don't even understand. And I'm going to be honest here. Every single day since the day they were born, I don't believe I'm living reality. I look in the mirror and I say, is this real? Am I mom?
Right.
Do I have children?
Yeah.
No, that can't be. That can't be. And I sometimes literally do this. I look in the mirror and I say, Kara, you are a mother. And I'll kind of stop and be like, I am? What? And it's I did the same thing throughout my pregnancy. Every single day I had to tell myself, you're living reality here. This is not in your mind. This is real.
And, and it's interesting because success comes in different ways.
Exactly.
And different expectations than you initially had. There's things that you can do. It all depends on what your dream is. My dream was to have a child.
Yep.
And ever since I was a little girl, my dream was adopting. Adoption is very tough in this country. It's very tough in other countries.
Yeah.
I still would love, but I know that's just not reality anymore for us. So we did the next best thing that we could.
That's amazing. It's amazing. I'm excited because I know as this scholarship fund, project of yours, as it takes shape and as it grows and grows, we're going to talk again.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you talk to me again. I'll track you down, Ilana, and we will talk more about that because, I know we talked about it a few months ago, and I think you have such a vision. That's such an incredible vision. And I love that you want to help these women in this particular community that are lacking. You specifically said resources. And that's something that is so true for minority groups. And it's so unfair and it's so infuriating to me. And I think it's such a beautiful thing when someone like you who's been through so much can turn their pain and their difficult journey into something beautiful like that. And I think that's just magical. Pardon all my words, magical, beautiful, powerful. Those are my favorite words, but it's a magical thing to be able to take this and say, I'm going to turn this into something incredible and change people's lives.
And I want everyone to be able to leave, if they decide to go through it, to leave with a positive feeling, no matter their success or unsuccess in achieving a child or not.
Because every journey has a different,
I think it's important.
I don't like to use the word ending, but a different path.
Result.
Thank you. That's a better word. My brain's like, what's another word? Kara, think of the word. And I'm sitting here like, where are you? Word.
Yes.
I can't. But yeah, the result, something else you said a few minutes ago that I just want to talk about for a second that I think is just so interesting. You said that before you went to Mexico and did this successful treatment, that you had said the treatment before that you said, all right, well, this is it. This is the last one I'm going to do. And then I'm going to move on. And you were ready to move on. And it's something really interesting to me because while my journey is completely different than yours, because we all have different journeys. Before I got pregnant with my kids, I was in a similar boat where in my case, I was going to therapy weekly because I was depressed and I had been through depression when I was much younger. And I knew the signs of depression and I knew I was slowly, but
crawling.
Yeah, it was just getting worse and worse to a point where I just was struggling to function every day. And there came a therapy session, and my incredible therapist said something to me. She didn't encourage me to move on or to say, okay, I'm ready to move on from this. She encouraged me that if I felt, not when, but if I felt that a time came where I was ready to say, okay, I'm ready to move on from this, that it was okay to make that decision. And I said, I think I'm almost there. And I was so close to that point where I was ready to just say to my husband, I can't keep doing this. I cannot keep being disappointed, keep getting a negative test. I can't keep getting IUIs. I cannot go through IVF. And I only went through IVF one time, but it was such a massive failure that I thought, I cannot put myself through that mental anguish anymore. I can't do it. And it was this. It was basically, okay, the next treatment after what worked was going to be another IVF, and that was going to be it for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be on my journey to, move on to the next phase of my life. And then surprise, surprise, everything went nuts, and everything it was one of those stars aligned kind of things. And it just is sticking in my mind because of what you said about that timing. For you, it was a similar thing in a different way. You know what I mean? That you just reach that point and then poof, hey, baby. And you're like, wait, what? It's just, and
now I'm like, oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll be like,
or when
your life.
I'm sure. Or when, only our close family knows at this point.
Yeah.
For good reason. Because as it is, I know it's a miracle when a baby is actually born and the mom makes it okay and everything. Yeah. Especially after all this.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, if it wasn't because we were in Mexico for 6 weeks, nobody would probably know.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So
what an incredible story.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. The doctor was so confident. He's like, all right, see you in 9 months. And I'm like, ha ha ha.
Sure.
You're so funny.
Right.
And then when I called him like 4 days after transfer, I was like, oh, it was 5.5 days after transfer, because they tell you cannot move for 5 days. It's like I literally turtle paced back to our hotel and stayed there for the next 5 days, which for me is punishment.
So here you're there.
I'm thankful and lucky that my husband got a wonderful room with a huge window that I could at least see things happening in the city. So once we were able to leave, and I was like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. I guess that didn't work. Oh, well, we tried. I was like, great, we can go away now. Yeah. And I called the doctor, and I will admit, my Spanish is very different than the Spanish in Mexico. So even though he said something to me, I was like, I don't think I understood what he said, but okay. So I hang up the phone and I tell my sister-in-law, and she goes, okay. So it ended up, what he was saying to me was like, wow, that was a quick result. Like, oh, that was bleeding because it took. That's what he said. And I didn't understand that. I thought he was saying, oh, it bled because it didn't work.
Right.
I was like, whatever. He's like, but I need you to stay until we do the test and make sure.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So I go and do the test. And sure enough, it's positive. And I look at the lady, I'm like, no way. Now, what's amazing is when you pay for treatments there, everything is included. All your blood work, all your testing, all your ultrasounds, everything. You don't have to be like, oh, I have to go to Quest. Like, no, you just come to their clinic and they do your blood work.
Come on,
it's
you
amazing.
Get with the program.
It's amazing.
That is amazing. It's incredible.
yeah, so when we went in I was like, okay, maybe it's twins. That's all I wanted was like one and done.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Yeah, and I go in for the first ultrasound to confirm. And he's like, all right, there's one. I'm like, keep looking.
Where's the other one hiding? I understand that one too.
I was like, keep looking. He's like, see, I told you. And then my sister-in-law said to me, yep, it's what he said on that phone call. But you didn't get it. I was like, no, because I don't understand his Spanish.
That is so funny. That's so funny. But what a story, Ilana. I
told him when I left, I was like, if it wasn't because of COVID, I would give you the biggest hug in my life and jump all over you.
Right.
I said, but it's COVID, so I can't even thank you enough.
I'll go like this. Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
I said, my thank you will be that I promise to bring you so many patients that need you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just had an idea for something that I want to talk to you about when we're done. That's so incredible. Okay. So I would like to switch gears for a couple of minutes and ask you my fun questions that I like to ask all of my guests. I know I gave you these questions to ponder. I always give my guests these questions ahead of time to think about because they're not that easy. I like to make people think. So let's talk. First question. Who are 3 people who have had the most influence, who have been the most inspirational to you in life or in your life?
Wow. Okay. So this one took a bit of thinking.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, but I'm not the kind of person that's like, oh, I look up to this person.
I'm the same way.
But I can say that my sister most definitely has been a huge part of someone I admire and look up to and follow in certain ways. In many ways, to me, she's always been my sister, but also kind of like a second mom.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of age difference between us. And she's always taken that role as well. Well, my mom is my best friend in the world, but still very different. And it's interesting as I was thinking about the questions, just seeing the different changes throughout our lives with me growing and obviously her growing and maturing as well. And seeing her raise 3 kids and always in my mind kind of like, there's no other way. Like that is the way.
Right.
Totally. To raise, even though I am completely different from her and would probably raise my kids completely different. But I mean, I gave my life for my nieces and nephews. I love them to death. They're a big part of the reason I even live in Philly. That's awesome. So yes, my sister is definitely one person that stands out the most. My husband, he has taught me so much. He has made me realize and understand things that my personality and the way that I am and the way I've grown up to be and my different cultures of being Israeli and Venezuelan and Americanized, where he's Mexican, but has lived here in the US for a long time. It's just like, wow, how does that make so much sense? He just finds the way to explain things to me that I understand, and I'm like, wow, and I actually pay attention and follow it and listen and really do the recommendations that he has given. I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense. Plus he has taught me patience like I never had before. And resilience and hard work, calmness. Like I am the least calm person. That is where I joke that my redhead comes into play strongly.
Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, my husband, and then, I was having a hard time of deciding on a third person. The person I just kind of randomly came up with is a gentleman in Florida, which I met working in politics over 20 years ago and retired at a young age. But he was the first person that ever taught me so many things. Like, he really was a mentor to me in using his gains to do good, to donate in causes he believes, and gives so much money and backs them up, not just money wise, but getting on their boards, advising them with all the business sense he has. While I lived in Florida, he really took care of me when things would go wrong. Even though he was traveling all the time, he'd be like, yes, you can come stay at my house. Well, my house got robbed. And,
oh my gosh.
Like all these things that would happen. And he's just been an inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing to me that I know I can call this person at any time. And he's a very important person, but never gave me that feeling like, oh, you're untouchable. Like,
right.
No, I can text him now and be like, I was just thinking of you. Are you okay? Like, that special bond of like, everything okay? Are your grandkids okay? Like, just someone I very much look up to, someone that gave me amazing opportunities in my life when I was younger, coming out of college. I worked in politics and I got to go to fun parties with the president. I met Trump like 20 some years ago.
Wow.
I was a 20-some-year-old, like, yay, I get to go to Mar-a-Lago. How cool. I was like, great, I don't want this picture, but I'm good. Let's move on here.
Right.
The party's cool. But,
Yeah.
It's fun, like getting to DC, getting to different events and learning so much of his interest and his ability to put in his input.
Yeah.
To change policy.
That's really cool.
Which is always something that I've wanted to do. And I've always looked to him and said, when this idea that I have becomes bigger, I will go to him. I will go to him for advice. I will go to him for pushing me into lobby in DC for more fertility care and support here in the US, because it's absurd.
It is absurd. It is
that it's
desperately
not covered.
needed. It absolutely, positively, 100%
It
is
is.
absurd. People go into so much debt just to try and have a family. And whether it's successful or not, nobody should have to be in debt just because they want to have a child.
Right. Or try when there's so many children that they're not able to be adopted, or
It's
so many children that are unwanted.
It's just, I agree with you. That's really
Those
cool.
were the three people.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay. Now it's my other question, which is similar but different. So here we go. If you could have, I always say a dinner party, but it doesn't have to be a dinner party. It could be any type of activity that you enjoy, whatever that happens to be for you. 3 people in quotes. They don't have to be people. I like to specify this. They can be characters in a story. They can be, I don't know, they can be dead or alive, fictional or real. They can be people you know. They can be people you don't know. They can be animals. They can be historical figures. It's very, very much anything goes, which apparently makes this a much harder question for people, but that kind of makes it more fun for me. So, if you could have this gathering or soiree or whatever it is, who would those 3 be and why? And
so I thought it was interesting. It definitely stumped me.
Yeah, stumps everybody.
It's like a funny answer.
I like
do these people have to be together? And if so, that'd be quite interesting. So the 3 people I thought of, just because it's super random.
I like them. Random is more fun, I think. I like random stuff.
So Patrick Swayze was the first to come to mind.
Very good one. I like it.
I was like, okay, I love Dirty Dancing.
I mean, if you don't love Dirty Dancing, are you even a person?
Exactly.
That's my opinion. I mean, you don't even have to be a woman to love that movie. That movie is so...
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. I never get tired of it.
Yeah, so I actually had a funny story about Patrick Swayze. Then President George Bush, 41, who I had met before, but would be super interesting to get the chance to have him more able to talk now, knowing more.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, which it's interesting that I say that because I always think when I say my grandmother, I always think of my maternal grandmother first and foremost, and almost only always.
Yeah.
But then I thought about it. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. I never really think of my dad's mom, who I'm named after.
Really? That's funny.
But yeah, it's interesting. But I did actually meet my maternal grandmother. She seems, I only met her until I was 7 years old. I had only met her a few times. But she's very much alive in our life. Yeah. Because she was a Holocaust survivor, and
so was my
that has brought us, it has brought till this day so much into our lives on so many levels of like, don't stop fighting for what you need, for what you want. No, we survived this. You can get through anything. Never stop looking for family, never stop growing your family, which was a huge push for me.
Oh yeah.
And I said, there's no way I'm stopping the buck here.
Yeah.
So she's always been, I contemplated with her, like, would I want her at the dinner or would she be the influential person?
Interesting. She could be
both.
both.
So she was like, yeah, she could be both. Even though I only knew her until I was 7 years old.
That's okay. Sometimes it's the people we don't know that well that have the most influence, yeah, who are that important in our lives. I get that. I really do.
President Bush.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. President Bush, because while I had met him previously while I was working, it would be so nice to now not be under that working pressure of having the freedom to not only express certain things, but also be like, wow, who would have thought we're going down this whole sense?
Yeah.
Like, people thought you were bad at some point. My God.
Yeah.
And I had worked with him, and I worked very closely with his brother while he ran for governor in Florida. Yeah. So I've always had an affinity for that family. Yeah. But it'd be super interesting, especially because they have married into Mexicans in their family as well. His brother Jeb is married to a Mexican woman.
I don't think I knew that.
So I've always thought that was super interesting.
It is, yeah.
That we had that in common, and all about the immigration and families and things like that. And Patrick Swayze, obviously, for so many reasons. But the funny part I was going to say about him, my best friend used to live in California on like a ranch. And I saw this gorgeous horse that they had at her neighbor's. And I was like, wow, that horse is something. Like, he is gorgeous. And she goes, oh, they tell me that used to be Patrick Swayze's horse. And this was like a couple months after he had passed. And I just started tearing up, like petting the horse. It was the most gorgeous horse. Yeah. And I was like, this is the closest I'll ever get to touching him.
That's hilarious. Oh my God. That's really
I was like, but
funny.
I would learn to dance with him.
Yeah. Oh man. Those are awesome answers. It's funny. I always say those are awesome answers. And it's such a personal question. I mean, like, is there such a thing as not an awesome answer? But it's so cool to me. I don't know. I just love it. Okay, Ilana, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
I'm going to make it 2 questions. Number 1 is, where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about you, your journey, and the exciting projects that you have in the works? Where can people find you?
So I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram as well. everybody can feel free to contact me, call me until more gets going with all these projects. If you have ideas, you want me on other podcasts.
That was my second question was, will you come back and do another episode?
I would love to.
Awesome.
I would love to.
And I'll put all your links and everything in the show notes so people can find you. So Ilana, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and your very, very, very exciting news. Thank you for sharing all of that with me, with our audience. You have an incredible story that I think is just so powerful and can really help a lot of women going through this struggle. So thank you for being here.
And I would love to be there for them as well.